faith of a mustard seed. Get up on your feet, rise up.
Welcome to another segment of the Drexwell Seymour Show. Now today I think I'm looking forward to this interview because I believe this is something that is well needed here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I mean, throughout the world, there are so many issues facing our country, especially young people, and they don't know where to turn to. And there's a department, it's not long ago, I believe, we'll find out how long it's been established. The Department of Rehabilitation here in Turks and Caicos is now established. And I have the director of the Department of Rehabilitation here in Turks and Caicos Islands, Mr. Harvey. And I want to welcome Mr. Harvey to the Drexwell Seymour Show.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Harvey, tell us, those who are watching the show, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, like you said, my name is Jaron Harvey. I married to Mia Harvey, and I'm the father of one. Okay. She's 4 years old, Jemiah Harvey. So I was born and raised in the Bahamas to Turks and Caicos parents. So my father's from Grand Turk and my mom is from North Caicos. So I tell people all the time that I may have been raised in the Bahamas, but I still believe that the ideals and the culture of the Turks and Caicos is still embedded in me from a young child. Mm-hmm. So there are still some similarities. So I have a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in forensic psychology. I've been working with offenders now for a little over 11 years. I've worked in the US, then I've also worked in the Bahamas, and then I've been in the Turks and Caicos now for about 4 years, trying to set up the Department of Rehabilitation.
Wow, you got a lot of experience, and I'm so happy that that you are in that role, and that's why I like the fact that we could go to the Bahamas, and people whose parents are from the Turks and Caicos, we have space right here for them. So I like the fact that you're here, contributing to the Turks and Caicos Islands, and you're Turks and Caicos Island, you grew up in the Bahamas, both your parents are from here as well. And so I'm happy to see that you're here making a well-needed contribution. How long has this department been around now?
So we've existed now since April 1st. We transitioned from
April 1st, 2023?
2023.
Oh,
yeah.
You're new.
So we're new. But prior to that, we were considered a unit, which was, we fell under, firstly, the Department of Social Development.
Yes.
So in 2019, when the alternative sentencing ordinance was passed, the government had to create staffing to coexist with the ordinance. Mm-hmm. And so the Department of Social Development formed the Probation and Rehabilitation Unit. But then, due to so many conflicts that were going on in terms of we were catering to offenders and the Department of Social Development were catering to victims, it became difficult for both entities to eat on the same pot. And so one ultimately would have starved. So of course we would starve. So we transitioned from being under the Department of Social Development in 2021, and we went under the Department of Correction, which is a prison. And so we were there for quite some time, and then the government saw that the prison is more the back end, and the objective is to try to prevent people from going to prison. Mm-hmm. And so they saw the need to transition us to become a fully functioning department so that we can be a more viable option for the court and try to prevent people from going to prison. And so that happened April 1st when the budget was passed. We became a fully independent department.
Oh, that's good. Before we get there, you mentioned something earlier about
alternative sentencing ordinance.
Tell us about that. What is that?
So the alternative sentencing ordinance, it gives or it empowers the court to dispose of cases in various methods. So prior to that, what was happening was whenever someone was convicted, mm-hmm. there were only two options on the table. Either they go to prison or they're released on their own recognizance. So when we say released on their own recognizance, it was almost like the court was telling the defendant, mm-hmm. you're free to go, just don't commit another crime.
Got it.
But they wasn't getting any help. There wasn't no services that would supervise these individuals to prevent them from committing another crime. And if they do commit another crime, how would the court know? So in 2019, the alternative sentencing ordinance gave the court a more viable option. So they have the ability to release persons on probation, to allow persons to do community service, subject them to an ankle monitoring device, mandate that they receive some sort of counseling, some sort of drug counseling. They have to receive education assistance, employment assistance. So the court now has several options that they can do. They can convict the person and put them on probation, or they can suspend conviction, put them on probation, and if they complete successfully, the record would not be the record would not be withheld against them. So whenever they get a police record, it will continue to be clean.
Okay.
Yeah, so the court just have more option now, rather than either releasing them on their own or sentencing them to prison. They can actually release them in the care of a probation officer who will supervise them, do what the court says has to be done, but at the same time getting them the help that is necessary to avoid them from committing another crime. So that is what the alternative sentencing ordinance is all about.
Okay. So how does how does one get to become under the umbrella view? Like of course, many people are committing crimes. At what stage, at what point, or how do they decide who should come under?
Who should go on probation? Okay, that's a good question, because there are some people who probation isn't meant for. So when you look at the court, when we look at what the court have the capacity to do, the legislation gives the court certain leeway to make a determination. So in some instances, the court have no necessary recourse but to sentence this individual to prison. So if someone committed murder, robbery, or attempted murder, or manslaughter, or something of that sort, the law dictates that these persons shall be sentenced to a term of imprisonment. So probation would not necessarily exist.
It's not an option.
It's not an option for those persons. However, for someone who've committed theft, or who've been in possession of dangerous drugs, someone who probably is a juvenile, or someone who's charged with some sort of, we would consider to be petty crimes, where the law says may, then the court have an option to either sentence this person to prison, give them a fine, or put them on probation.
I see.
So based on those instances, however, there are some people also who may have committed theft, but because of the risks they pose to society, or their inability to follow rules and regulations, it is best that they do go to prison to avoid avoid them from committing another crime.
Okay.
Yeah. So in those instances, we would recommend them to go to prison.
I see. Yeah. So the Department of Rehabilitation, that sounds like we're gonna help them. We're gonna help them to transfer their life. Is that what takes place?
Yes.
Or are you just monitoring them?
Yes. So we have like a two-prong approach. So on one hand, we consider ourselves to be police officers because we enforce the court's order. So whenever the court say you have to do 50 hours of community service, you have to be inside your house at a particular time, you have to pay a fine, we are legally required to make sure they do that.
Okay.
But on the next hand, we are almost like counselors because we understand the issues that are contributing to them committing these crimes. And so we have to then provide interventions to address these issues, so to avoid them from reoffending.
Okay.
And so based on research, we have to have a balanced approach. We can't be more police officer over a counselor, and we cannot be more counselor over a police officer. So we call it more surveillance and then casework. We have to have a balanced approach when dealing with those individuals in order to create any systemic change.
I see. Okay. Now you mentioned you understand some of the issues. Based on your research, based on your experience, based on some of the cases that you've seen come through your department, what are some of the main reasons for the issues that take place? I mean, among some of these individuals.
All right, so one of the things that we do in our department is we have a validated risk assessment. It is called the Level of Service Case Management Inventory.
Okay.
And it's a risk assessment that was developed by Dr. Andrews and Dr. Bunter out of Canada. And it's been used for about 40 years. And so it's being validated to use in the Caribbean, and it's being used in the Turks and Caicos, in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda. It's being used in the UK, in the US, as well as in Canada. And so whenever we encounter any client, we always want to administer that risk assessment because it tells us what are the issues that are contributing to these persons committing another crime.
Okay.
And it's based on the 8 criminogenic needs.
I see.
So based on these 8 areas, we administer the risk assessment. Once the risk assessment then develops into a graph. And for us, anything that passes 50% on that graph is something that has to be targeted and treatment, because that's the area that is posing the greatest likelihood or is influencing the criminal behavior. So for us, most of the times it is the antisocial cognition, because our thoughts influence the way that we behave, and if we can change the way that we think, ultimately we can change the way that we behave. But then there are some people who have no type of emotional regulation, no type of self-control skills. You can just walk on their clocks and then they're ready to tear your head off. They have no type of restraint. They don't know the difference between being assertive and aggressive and being aggressive. They have poor communication skills. And so for these individuals, we found that there are a lot of issues that are contributing to the criminal behavior, particularly in the context of Turks and Caicos. But one of the things that we found is that a lot of the persons have what we call adverse childhood experience. Adverse childhood experiences. And so one of the issues is that when we interview and we're speaking with them, a lot of the issues that are resurfacing are stuff that would have happened in the childhood. We see that they had poor parental supervision, meaning mommy working 2 and 3 jobs, and so they were able to be in the community and do as they please. There was no type of love attachment between the parent and the child, so they tend to try to get this from being around their friends. They were not involved in any extracurricular activities that exposed them to individuals who are pro-social behavior. And then we find a lot of the friends that they're hanging or associating with, they are involved in criminality, they are involved in illicit drugs. And so these are some of the stuff. And so we find that some people struggle with daddy issues, some people struggle with no type of attachment, no type of social support system inside our society. So there are so many issues that influences people to commit crime, but ultimately I believe it is the way that persons think. Those persons who view the system as corrupt, who think the police, the court, the whole entire system is corrupt and they're out to get me, the government isn't doing anything to support me. And so they have this distorted view about society and about the government system and about services that were meant to help them. They have this distorted view, and because of that, they tend to act out. And I believe that if we can change the way that they think, we can change ultimately their behavior.
I know the department has only been in existence since April. Have you seen a transformation with some individuals?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. There was a juvenile who was arrested, who was homeless at age 10.
At age 10?
He was homeless. And so he entered the state care. And when he entered the state care, that means he became a ward of the state. The government became responsible for him. And so at age 14, he committed a crime, and he was sentenced to prison for a certain amount of months. So at 15, he came out. And every year thereafter, from 2011 up to 2019, every year he was in and out of prison.
Wow.
So he came out, he went to prison for 10 months, came out, went back to prison. Went to prison again for about 9 or 11 months, came out, and went back to prison. So he was in and out of prison for at least 8 or 9 times. So between 2011 up until 2019, every year he was in and out of prison. In 2020, he committed a crime. The magistrate was saying, I can't continue doing this. This isn't making sense. I'm sending you to prison, but then when you come out, I'm seeing you again.
Same thing.
So I want to try a different approach. So probation was relatively new at that time. So we were summoned to court. We prepared a pre-sentencing report, and we recommended that this person come on probation. So we administered the risk assessment at the time, and it told us that his risk was considerably high. So he was required to be with the probation officer Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for about until his risk significantly decreased. So during those 3 days per week, he was being assisted with all of the things that were contributing to his behavior. We would target them in treatment. And so for 6 months, he continued to attend successfully, sometimes unwillingly, but we have to do what we have to do. And so at the 6 month mark, I think somewhere in October that year, in 2020, we got him a job. By February 2021, he got promoted on that same job twice per year. Twice. So he ended up, he was so impressive, they promoted him in the space of 4 months twice. So he continued to attend, continued to see us, continued to attend the substance abuse counselor. We were assisting with his behavior modification program. We helped him to understand the connection between his criminal involvement and the friends he was associating with. We connected him to a strong social support system because his family was non-existent, and those who were existent wasn't much of a positive influence. So we tried to break down all of those barriers that could influence him. And so by June of 2021, when he completed probation and we went back to court, I could remember how he cried, just talking about this is the first thing he's ever completed, or someone has spoke so positive about. And at June of this year, when we checked our records, we realized that he did not commit another crime since then. Wow. And so he's actually still on the same job we've been able to get him. So that's one of our success stories, and it speaks to the power of persons just getting assistance. And a lot of the people who we deal with, they come from a very poor background. Their family structure is non-existent. And for most of them, the only thing they know about is being told no or some sort of negativity. So the only positive influence that they sometimes get is when they meet with their probation officer, who have to utilize some techniques to motivate them to want to go through the various stages of change. So these are some individuals who we've been dealing with. And we looked at our statistics from between 2020 up until January 2022, and about 18 persons would have passed through our hands. And I think only about 15 of them were either breached or reoffended as of June. So we were functioning at an 86% success rate. And then for those who were on parole during that time, we 100% of those who came on parole have not reoffended. So we just believe, that people can change. Yeah. And then we have the techniques that we use to help influence that change and to capitalize on that, just to ensure that they don't reoffend. It is never our intention to send someone to prison. We believe that people and society is best served when people can remain in the community. But I won't be naive and say there are some people who deserve to go to prison. Yeah. So if we're giving you a chance and you don't see it as something that's positive, or you don't want to participate, then you could just go to prison. We always give them that two options. You can be on probation, or you can be on prison. Which one do you want? And so if you want to be on probation, these are the rules, these are the regulations. And if you want to, you gotta abide by it. If you choose not to abide, then you don't answer to us. Yeah. You will answer to the court. And at the time, the court won't be too kind and entertaining, because they, as far as they're concerned, they gave you a second chance by allowing you to be on probation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one of our success stories.
That's very good to hear. I mean, that's very good to hear. And if it continues on that trend,
yes,
we will see a lot of positive stuff happening.
Yes.
Yeah. How big is your department?
So we're very small. It's 6 of us spread across Providence, Cialis, and and Grand Turk, with the majority based in Providence, Cialis, where the bulk of our caseload is. But we continue to see clients fluctuate between South Caicos and North Caicos. I think at one point we had about 8 persons who were on probation in South, and I think about 3 in North Caicos. And so we see it beginning to fluctuate.
So you just over the South.
So we have it in the zone. So those in Providence, Cialis will be responsible for North, and then those who in Grand Turk will be responsible in the South Caicos. Yeah. Okay. And so they would go over depending on the risk and the need of that individual. they will go over to see those persons. But if it continues based upon how we see it, there would be a need to hire someone to be stationed in those islands on a full-time basis. But right now, it is manageable for us in Providence, Cialis, and in North.
So do you have, like, I guess most of your cases are through a court case. Do you have, like, where families can come to the center for help, or is it open like that?
Yeah, so we kind of like been trying just dealing with the court because of where we are. We are afraid to open the portals because then we'll be inundated with so much. So
You don't have enough resources.
We don't have resources, so we're still being housed in two cramped office, and there isn't so much we can do based upon the infrastructure that we have. So we are championing and bargaining with the government and pleading to try to get our own space that we'll be able to do more, even from a preventative standpoint. So as it stands right now, most of our clients have been those who come either through the court or through the parole board. But we hope to transition to open up once we have the capacity to do so, because we are utilizing the Department of Social Development space, and so we have to be careful in how we deal with it. So for right now, we just limit for that. But at some point, when we get into our independent space in our conference room, and we'll be running groups on a regular basis, we will open up for those who may be interested in participating in that program because they realize that they have an issue in this area and they want to prevent themselves from getting in trouble. We will open it up.
That is awesome. Earlier you mentioned, I need to understand, you mentioned the difference between the Department of Rehabilitation
Yes.
and the social. You say one is for the victim and one is for. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Good. And that's a good question, because sometimes people still refer to us as welfare officers or social workers. So the Department of Social Development is responsible for child abuse matters. They're responsible for protecting children and vulnerable people in the country. We, on the other hand, are responsible for supervising offenders in the community. So anytime there is a person that's been convicted and the court allows this individual to remain in the community, they have to be under the supervision of a probation officer. And so that is what we are responsible for right now. But we are anticipating within the new coming year to implement more of a prevention method, where we'll be hiring some juvenile probation officers who will be strictly focused on dealing with juveniles who are considered to be at risk, to prevent them from entering the criminal justice system. So that would be a unit within the department specifically responsible, just as well as the probation unit and the parole unit. So that's what the Department of Social Development. So they deal primarily with offenders from their welfare arm. So if someone needs housing assistance or food assistance or some sort of social enhancement aid, that is the Department of Social Development. For us, we deal strictly with those who have committed a crime and they've been convicted, and the court think it's necessary for them to go through some reformation period and for them to be supervised. Then we are responsible for that.
I see. So what ministry you fall under?
So I fall under the newly established Ministry of Public Safety and Utilities. So there's 7 departments that fall under that ministry, which is the Department of Rehabilitation, the prison, the postmaster, the post office, the water undertaking department, the energy and utilities department. I think also the government printing, government information services department. I think that's it. Yeah, I think it's just 7 of us under that department. We were previously under the Ministry of Home Affairs, but it was split in 2 because of how big it was.
Right.
Yeah, it was 19 departments, so they split it in 2, and one had 8, and the next one has 7.
Right. And then I know you mentioned about the 8 causes of social issues.
Yeah, the criminogenic need.
Yeah.
The criminogenic need.
Criminogenic
needs.
need. And you mentioned, it seems to me, based on what you said, the number 1 is the antisocial.
Antisocial cognition.
That seems like to be the main ones.
Yes. So when we talk about the antisocial, I mean the criminogenic need, we have it divided into half. So they call it the big four and then the small four.
Okay.
So the big four are the antisocial cognition, the antisocial pattern, the criminal friends, and then the fourth one I think is marital and
Okay.
family. I think so. I think it's marital and family is the four. We were having a debate because some of the team members believe that substance abuse should be a part of the big four,
Big four.
and not of the small four. And so I was saying before someone can go and use and abuse drugs, it has to be a thought process that occurs that convinces them to want to use the drugs.
Okay.
And so it can't necessarily be part of the big four. But then that is more of a subjective kind of thing. It isn't. It doesn't matter whether it's a big four or the small four.
Right.
Yeah. But it's more for it's a debate within the department.
So what's the difference between the two antisocial? You have antisocial behavior,
So antisocial cognition and then antisocial behavior. Antisocial cognition is just the way that people think, who have a negative thought. Antisocial behavior is a result of, because we think this way, this is how we're going to behave.
I see.
So because I have an issue with you, Mr. Seymour, and you just accidentally walk on my shoe, I need to tear your hair off because I think that I have an issue with you. So antisocial behavior is determined based on those persons who have poor emotional regulation, no kind of self-control skills. They don't know how to weigh the pros and the cons. Then antisocial thoughts and or cognition are those people who can break into your house and see $50,000 on the table and say, I took 1,000, I left 49,000. That ain't gonna hurt you because I took 1,000, and I left 49. So you should be grateful that I left 49. And so it's those individuals who have this distorted view about society and this distorted view about crime, that those persons who would compare their behavior to someone serious, they would try to deflect or diminish the way that they behave, or I slap him, but I didn't slap him that hard, or I stab him, but I think he's exaggerating, I didn't stab him there. And so those persons who try to deflect their behavior or diminish the impact that would have occurred, we would consider that to be antisocial cognition.
I see.
Or for a more layman term, you would say antisocial thoughts.
I got you. All right. Well, that's good.
Thoughts.
Now I know we talk about the court system, you deal with it. Okay, what about those persons that are in prison, where they are sentenced to prison? While they're in prison, does your department offer any services to people that are in prison?
That's a good question, and I think that's a good question. So we currently have so the prison has its own rehabilitation team.
Oh, okay,
They have its own rehabilitation team.
And they do have a rehabilitation. They do have a team.
So yeah, they have a rehabilitation manager, and then they have support officers.
Okay.
But from our end, we have a probation officer who's stationed inside the prison, and the purpose of that probation officer is to prepare inmates for their release into society, because all of the persons who are in prison will eventually be released. There is no one who's serving an indefinite sentence in prison.
Because life doesn't mean really life.
It doesn't mean really life. It's only 30 years. So for that, at the 6-month mark, we have where the probation officer administer a test to find out what are the barriers that will prevent this person from re-entering society successfully. Do they have a place to stay? Do they have identification? Do they have access to insurance? Do they have a job? Would they need a ride from the airport? Do they have access to clean clothes and toiletries? What issues that will prevent this person from re-entering society, or what is the issue that will influence this individual to commit another crime? So based on that, we then try to implement measures to address those barriers. So if it's a housing, we try to connect them to try to get them suitable housing. If it's a drug issue, we try to make sure that they have an appointment with the substance abuse counselor upon their release, so that when they come out, they have a plan as to what is it that could be done. But the issue that we're having is, anytime someone has served their entire sentence, legally we cannot force them we can only extend our hand.
So because they already served
They
their
already
time.
served their time. So
Oh.
we can only extend and say, we are willing to help, we are willing to offer assistance. If you need us, we are here. But then on the other hand, for those who are on parole, whenever they come out, they have to report to us.
Because that's part of the.
That's part of their conditions of coming out early. But what we have found is that those who come on parole tend to be more successful when they come out into society versus those who serve their full sentence. So at some point, we're going to have to make a decision where everyone who goes to prison, at some point they come out on a period of supervision upon release. Because based upon the current statistics, those who keep going in and out of prison have never been on parole, or they've never been subjected to some sort of supervision period.
I see.
So we believe at some point we will be petitioning for the legislation to change.
Yeah,
so
I was
that
just about to ask about that.
for all of those persons who are in prison, for them to come out and to some sort of period. Because you can imagine being in prison for 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the environment you left when you come out will not be the same.
No.
You will be confronted with stigma. You will be confronted with issues. And if you don't have a strong support system in place or an ally in society, it will be difficult for you to adjust. If you run into some roadblocks, you will run into people who will try to shun you. And if you're not adequately prepared to face those issues, it could cause you to commit another crime. And sometimes people commit crime because they want to go back to the environment that they become accustomed to.
Yeah, they probably feel better off being
Yeah,
there.
they feel they guarantee to eat, they guarantee the place to sleep. So we know that it is important for those individuals who come out and we see the transition and we see the success. That's something that we probably will be petitioning the government for to make it a requirement for those persons, because we believe it will be good for the country ultimately.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, after listening to you, and I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
Don't lose it.
I'm very hopeful because we hear so many cases. We hear people going to jail. We hear nobody getting help. We hear people coming out the same, and I'm grateful that we have the Department of Rehabilitation to help address some of the issues we have in this country, because we have a lot of issues in this country, and I'm grateful that this department is there, and hopefully one day, as you say, we could open up to the community, because I think that's where the preventative part will come in as well.
Yeah, it would be considered as part of the preventative point. But one of the things that we really want to zone is for those persons who are in high school and primary school, because we have found that the majority of about 80% of our clients, they started to display some sort of behavioral issue while they were in high school.
Oh, interesting.
So if we believe if we are able to address those issues, equip them with the necessary skills while they are in high school, we could potentially reduce up to about 50 or 60% of the crimes from occurring in Turks and Caicos.
Wow.
So that's our argument to the government to invest more resources in the prevention standpoint, not to cut the budget in terms of preventing that for the prison.
Yeah.
Because the mechanism that we hope to do will be more sustained within a period of 3 to 5 years. And the prison will be able, for those persons who may slip through the crack based upon the service that we will do for the next 3 years, because those who graduated this year, those who may be graduating next year, we may not be able to catch them because of our start period.
Yeah.
So those persons probably will have to go to prison. And so, but those persons who are in Form 1, Form 2, and Form 3, who we may be able to intervene and to assist, that is something that we are hoping to implement within the new financial year. Because it's important that even while we try to strengthen the criminal justice system, we have to strengthen our preventative system. So if we intend to reduce crime and have a sustained, we have to start from the school system.
Wow, that's some very good points, and I hopefully this will be done. I mean, the budget ends in March, right?
Yeah.
So, wow. So how do you deal with persons that are illegal, don't have status? I mean, are they being ignored, or because that's another issue that we find a lot of people don't have any legal status in the country who are offenders, Some get caught, some don't. I mean, how do you deal with that? Or do they serve their time and get deported?
So it depends. For those persons who, I guess, are in the country illegally
Mm-hmm.
and they are abroad, and I guess if they were convicted and sentenced, more than likely they will be deported.
Okay.
But then what we have as a department, we are seeing is there are some persons who were born and raised in this country,
Mm-hmm.
went to school in this country, and they're involved in the criminal justice system. But it's difficult to get them a job because they have no type of
They're not Turks and Caicos.
they don't have any documents.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a difficult thing that we are having, and we just are now trying to wrap our head around how do we.
Because that's
It is
that's
an
a big
issue.
number problem.
It is an issue, and it's an issue that we cannot continue to ignore because it's here and it will continue to be here, and at some point we will have to address it. But I'd say for us as a department, I think that's the minority.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the majority of persons that we see are those who are Turks and Caicos Islanders who have legal status and able to get employment. They may not have a status card, but we can prove that their father or their grandfather are from this country. We just have maybe a handful of those who are born and raised to Haitian parents who have no type of status. And they have a lot of issues that needs to be addressed. We're trying to wrap our head around how do we tackle that?
Yeah.
How do we address it? And so that's a conversation that we are having, and that we hope to come to some sort of resolution.
Yeah.
Because it has to be addressed.
Yeah. I mean, are there other areas that we have not addressed that your department is evolving in or planning to do that you'd like the public to become aware of?
I think, I guess for us, one of the things that we've been doing for this financial year is more of public relations.
Okay.
So we've been appearing on radio shows.
Yes.
Doing shows like this just to raise awareness about what probation, parole, and what the Department of Rehabilitation is all about. Because if you ask the regular person, they probably won't know exactly what this
And don't even know it exists, right?
They don't know it exists. So we've been trying to create an awareness, because if we can create an awareness, then people will be more inclined. It will create a more favorable climate towards the rehabilitation of offenders.
Yeah.
So we have partnerships with say, for instance, Grace Way Club, that they will hire someone who will refer it from our office to them. So we know that. And one of the reasons I believe that exists is because they understand the work that is being done behind the scenes to get these individuals to a place where they can actually work.
Yeah.
And so if we continue to have stories and to have interviews like this, just raising awareness and creating that public campaign about what is being undertaken for the rehabilitation of offenders, I think it will help us tremendously.
Yeah.
And I think I always tell people, we are the last out the gate in terms of implementing this, having this department created. But in comparison to our neighboring country who had it for a long time, we are ahead of them. We are ahead of them in many ways. And one of the reasons is that we are starting at a pivotal time, and we're starting based on evidence.
Yeah.
And it isn't just based on feelings or opinions. We tend to base all of our decisions and everything that we do based on statistics and evidence, because we want to ensure that we can have long-lasting change, and that whatever it is that we are targeting, it can be sustained, and that's our ultimate goal: to promote public safety, reduce crime in the country, and try to help our clients to become a law-abiding citizen.
I like it. Now, I think under the previous administration, they had implemented something called second chances.
Chance of Change program.
Chance of Change program.
Yes, Chance of Change.
Is your department working with that?
So
was that still in place?
Yeah, so the Chance of Change program is actually our mandate.
Oh,
that
okay.
falls under us.
Okay.
So when what we did was we had to rewrite the Chance for Change program and create it and to make it applicable and try to create some sort of standard operating procedure with the Chance for Change program.
Okay.
And so what we've been doing for last year we had a stakeholder meeting, trying to bring all of the stakeholders involved. Because basically what the Chance for Change is basically re-entry planning. So the Chance for Change is basically preparing inmates for their release back into society, and that's what our probation officer has been doing.
I got you.
And that is basically ensuring that those who are in prison, when they come out, they have the resources that they need to be able to live a law-abiding life in society, connecting them to jobs, connecting them to houses, ensuring that they have access to food, ensuring that they have a mentor or family support. That's basically what the Chance of Change is all about. And so it isn't so much a program per se.
Okay.
It's more of a job that someone should be doing.
Which is part of your department.
Yes, which is part of. So one of the reasons why people probably have been hearing about the Chance for Change. I think yesterday I told someone to be careful about using the word program, because every time you say the word program, people think, oh, it's a program that you're going to be a part of. So it's 2 months, it's 3 months, it's 4 months. So it isn't based on a time, it's based upon you entering and you getting the assistance, and however long it takes for you to successfully obtain the resources and the skill set to live a law-abiding life. That's what happened. So it's difficult for me to say you got a probation office or being on probation is a program when that's a job with someone. That's a job with someone too. So the probation office in the prison is responsible technically for the Chance for Change, but they're doing it as just doing their job.
It's part of the everyday.
Yeah, it's part of the everyday job. Yes.
I understand. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Harvey. I mean, very, very informative discussion, and I'm bad informed as well, and I believe the public is, and I wish you and your department the best, and I believe that this interview with you is going to create a lot of hope for us in the society, and I'm looking forward to next year when we deal with the preventive measures, and we'll see even a better change taking place in Turks and Caicos. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have any closing remarks.
No, I just want to emphasize the information that we're sharing today. We don't want it to stay here. We want you to just spread the information, even for the listening audience. When you're sitting around the dinner table and you're driving in your vehicle or you're going to church, just spread the information and let them know that there is a Department of Rehabilitation that exists, and their mandate is to prevent crime and to also assist those who are currently committing crime to become a law-abiding citizen in our society. So just spread the word. Our office is located downtown Butterfield Square. If you know where the Department of Social Development is, that's where we are. We hope not to be there too long. So we're hoping to move shortly because it's a conflict of interest.
We need the space.
Yeah, we need the space, but it's a conflict because can you imagine a victim of sexual assault walking in to go see their social worker?
True.
And then the person who perpetrated that crime is walking in to see the probation officer. You can imagine how difficult it would be. And then the Department of Gender Affairs is also in the office.
Oh, yes.
So you can imagine a domestic assault occur. The husband is going to see, or the wife, whichever one, is going to see their probation officer. The victim is going to see the gender officer, and both of them walk inside the hallway. It could create a sense of uneasiness. It could make people feel, it could make the Department of Social Development, the social worker work hard because the victim may not trust them because they're so close, people might not show up. So it is a conflict of interest that we hope will be addressed sooner rather than later. And there are some things being done.
Yeah.
We know that letters have been written and it's currently within the Ministry of PPID. And we know that some work is being done to actually get us out. And so we are anxious for that, because once that happens, we'll be able to fly and we'll be able to expand our services and do so much more.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to, the future with the Department of Rehabilitation. You've been watching the Turks and Caicos show. Mr. Harvey, the director of the Rehabilitation Center here, department in Turks and Caicos Islands. What a great initiative that has been done. We'll be now separating it. And we're going to see, he already shared with us a success story, and I'm quite sure many more. And there's hope. We have to keep hope alive, and we can do it through the Department of Rehabilitation. Thank you for watching the show.